Today, we're zeroing in on something critical for, well, pretty much any business taking card payments. Those processing fees. They can be surprisingly high, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Ever feel a bit lost about where that money actually goes? Or, more importantly, how you can keep more of it? That's what we're tackling today. We want to shed some light on the costs and look at some real actionable ways you can optimize things.
So the big question for anyone listening is, how can we actually start chipping away at that cost?
Right. Let's get into the nuts and bolts then. Where do these fees actually come from? First up, the big one, interchange fees.
Yeah, interchange, that's usually the largest slice. It's charged by the bank that actually issued the customer's card.
And it varies quite a bit.
It does. Think somewhere between maybe 0.3% up to 2% of the transaction value. Depends on the card type, where the payment happens, your business type, lots of factors.
Cool.
Then you've got assessment fees. These go to the card networks themselves, Visa, MasterCard, generally smaller, sort of in the ballpark of 0.12 to 0.15%.
Got it. And number three,
That would be the processor fees. These are what your payment service provider, your PSP, charges you for their part in the process, and these can really vary.
based on what?
Well, based on your business specifics, things like your sales volume, your average transaction size, even your perceived risk level. Sometimes there are minimum monthly fees too, or extra charges for certain services.
Okay, and the last one, chargeback fees. Sounds painful.
They can be, that's the cost when a customer disputes a charge. Could be anywhere from $20 to $100 per chargeback, depending on your agreement.
So understanding all these is key. We're seeing businesses move towards something called interchange plus plus pricing or ICE plus plus pricing. Why is that gaining traction over the older blended model?
Well, blended pricing was simple, right? You got one rate, nice and predictable.
But not very clear.
Exactly. That was the downside. Zero transparency into the individual fee components. IC plus, it might seem a bit more complex because costs can fluctuate, but it gives you that full breakdown.
So you see the interchange, the assessment, the processor markup separately.
Precisely. And that transparency is powerful. It means you, the merchant, can see exactly what you're paying for each piece. And that opens up opportunities to actually target specific costs and try to reduce them, especially if you're a larger business.
All right, let's shift to the practical side. What can businesses actually do? Let's start with using a multi-acquirer strategy.
Right. The power here is flexibility and leverage, really. If you work with more than one PSP, you're not locked into one provider's rates.
So you can shop around, essentially.
You can choose the best, most competitive option for different types of transactions or maybe different regions you sell into. It just creates a more competitive environment for your payment processing needs.
Makes sense. Okay, strategy two. Optimize routing and using domestic payment rails. Sounds technical.
It's about being smart with the path your payments take, especially if you're dealing with cross-border sales. Routing payments intelligently can help you avoid some pretty steep cross-border fees.
And the domestic rails part.
Yeah, in some countries, there are really strong local payment systems, like carte bancaires in France, for example. Using those local options where they're available can often be way cheaper than just defaulting to the big international card networks.
Good tip. Strategy three involves offering cheaper payment options, like account-to-account payments.
Exactly. Things like ACH in the US or SEPA Instant over in Europe, even Pix in Brazil or Ideal in the Netherlands. These bypass the traditional card networks entirely.
Which means lower costs.
So encouraging customers, maybe even incentivizing them slightly to use these A2A options can make a real dent in your overall fees.
Interesting. Number four is about using data to get lower interchange rates. How does giving more data save money?
It sounds a bit backwards, I know, but in some markets, particularly less regulated ones, providing extra details with the transaction, like a customer's ZIP code in the US, or what's called level 2 or level 3 data for B2B sales, can lower the perceived risk for the issuing bank.
And lower risk means?
Lower interchange fees, potentially. They see it as a safer transaction.
Okay. Next up, optimizing fraud prevention and cutting down chargebacks. The cost link seems obvious here.
Oh, it's very direct. Fraud hits you twice. There's the direct loss from the fraudulent transaction itself, but then your PSP and the card issuers might start seeing you as higher risk, potentially leading to higher fees down the line.
So good fraud prevention is also cost prevention.
Absolutely. Minimizing chargebacks is crucial for keeping those overall costs under control.
Sixth strategy,
Okay.
using the correct merchant category code, or MCC. This feels like basic admin, but it matters for fees.
It really does. Your MCC tells the payment system what kind of business you are. And different business types have different risk profiles, which directly impacts the interchange rates you get charged.
So a low-risk business needs to make sure they're coded correctly.
Yes. Make sure MCC accurately reflects what you do. It could mean securing better, lower rates you're entitled to.
Right. And finally, number 7, implementing network tokens. We hear more about these lately.
Yeah, network tokenization is becoming a big thing. Basically, it replaces sensitive card numbers with unique digital identifiers, or tokens.
And that helps with costs. How?
Well, first, it often leads to higher transaction approval rates, which is good for revenue. But importantly, both Visa and MasterCard are now actively encouraging their use by offering better pricing, lower fees for transactions that use these tokens. So there's a direct financial incentive.
So the takeaway isn't just about pinching pennies on fees, is it? It's broader than that.
It really is. While cutting those processing costs is obviously important, optimizing your whole payment setup can actually boost your revenue too. Think better conversion rates, happier customers because their preferred payment method works smoothly.
So as you think about your own payment operations, definitely consider these strategies. Think about how understanding those fees, making active choices, and maybe using a more unified approach could really impact your bottom line and maybe even drive some growth.